Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. This is an illustration. It's called White Griffin. In the illustration, it looks like a carefully a lot of airbrushing, maybe a digital work. It's a fantasy.
It's not.
It's painted?
That is a cover of the book, The White Griffin, the middle book in a trilogy that I did with my husband.
Okay.
And it is by an artist named Jody Lee, and she does all her work physically with colored pencil.
That's amazing.
You should go over to her website. Your jaw will drop. She does these beautiful paintings, and they're all in colored pencil.
That's amazing. So what it is the main subject in the image is this massive griffin. So it's like half, I don't know, like size of a horse, head of an eagle, large wings, 4 legs with talons. What else? So we've got a kind of protagonist with like an 8-pack stomach with like these like nice little like MC Hammer pants.
Because everyone loves a pretty boy.
Of course. Very pretty boy with his hair blowing in the wind. He's doing something odd with his left hand, his right hand. He's looking off to the right, and behind there's like a gag, a few people, I guess they're like officers or something, holding up a spear, and then another one who looks like some kind of it was in a kind of fantasy background set or background.
It is indeed.
And so there's like spires in the background, the sky, the dominant color. It's a very warm image with colors of purples and oranges. It's beautifully done. It's really beautifully done. And what I like is people can go on the website and look at, or on the YouTube and see these images. Okay, so walk us through.
This is the cover of White Griffin. The first book is Black Griffin. The second book is White Griffin. The third book is Silver Griffin. And They are person, place, and organization. The Black Griffin, this person, is actually that one in the picture, because he went through a very traumatic experience, nearly died, and it turned all his feathers white.
Oh, okay.
And that is him, and the traumatic experience ended up with, it was in the middle of a war, and it was a very catastrophic end to the war, and the populace of their particular country literally scattered to the 4 winds to avoid essentially a nuclear explosion, magical type.
Mm-hmm.
And that bunch that were with the Black Griffin ended up on a seacoast that they thought was uninhabited. It was not. And they are encountering and negotiating with the people called the Haile, who are named after Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, yeah.
And they're negotiating to be allowed to stay. And the background city is the Haile city.
Okay.
They are a very sophisticated people.
We're looking at the dedication. So walk us through your aesthetic development, your appeal, you gravitated to this form. When did this kind of start occurring to you as the path to expression that you wanted to pursue?
Well, I love science fiction and fantasy. And my father loved science fiction and fantasy, and my parents would let me read anything that was lying around the house. And that's how I discovered science fiction in the first place, was picking up one of his paperbacks. And This was back in the dark ages when dinosaurs roamed the earth and we were chiseling books out on stones. So they were not being produced anywhere near as fast as I could read them. I cleaned out what little there was in the children's section and pretty much cleaned out whatever there was in the adult section of the library. My mom advocated with me for me with the librarian to get me an adult library card so I could check out anything I wanted.
Right. What city was this?
This was a little city called Highland, Indiana.
Okay. That's
up in the Hammond, Gary, northwest corner of Indiana. And obviously there was no Amazon. There was not the proliferation of bookstores that there was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
So about the only way I could get books that weren't in the library was to mail order them. So I would have to save up my allowance, my tiny allowance, and mail it off to the address in the back of the paperback and
right.
Pick up another book. And so they were not producing, or I could not buy these things fast enough to satisfy my reading urges. So I started writing them.
Wow.
And it was mostly based on the work of Andre Norton, who I was fortunate enough to work with later in my career.
Oh, wow.
She became a very, very dear friend, and I miss her greatly.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an amazing woman. But yeah, that's how I ended up writing. And even then, I think I was aware in the back of my mind it was unlikely I was going to make a living at writing. So that was never on my mind. But what was on my mind was I'd like to get published someday.
Right.
And I did once I discovered that what I was doing was called fan fiction. This was back in the days of the paper zines when they actually printed this stuff out and sent it around to all the contributors and all of the subscribers. So I did about 4 or 5 years worth of fan writing in the fanzines. And I finally said to myself, after reading a couple of really, really bad science fiction fantasy books,
mm-hmm.
I can do better than that. I'm going to try and get published.
Nice.
That's when I was working towards getting published. And I started with short stories and then moved into novels.
That's amazing. What kind of community did you have around you so clearly your parents were very supportive.
Absolutely.
Like, could you describe how else you got it's not really courage, but you got the sort of the chutzpah, like the sort of like that, just say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Like how else did you get that?
There's a certain amount of chutzpah there. It's because I got hooked up with the science fiction and fantasy community, and also the role players and RPGs game players.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing Dungeons and Dragons. I did Dungeons and Dragons back when it was called Greyhawk, and it was a bunch of hand-stapled mimeographed pages that got sold only in game stores and gaming bookstores.
Right.
So, yeah, I just got hooked up with the community, and the community itself was very supportive of that sort of thing. There was infighting and that kind of stuff back then too, but I think it was, on the whole, I think it was nicer than it is today.
Yeah, I think now everybody's really competing in a way that
the fandom has become kind of toxic.
Okay.
The stuff that's going on now would not have been allowed.
Right.
People would have been shunned. They would not been allowed to go to conventions. They'd have been turned away at the door.
One thing that's really interesting, I don't know if you're aware of this, but what's funny is that it's almost like there's a very, very short delay between when you speak and then your birds behind you who can hear you are just like...
They're answering me.
Yeah, they're just like, when she's talking, she's talking.
They're trying to initiate a conversation. One of them in particular is yeah, that's Marty.
Yeah.
That's little Marty. He's going, hey, I'm here. You're supposed to be taking care of me right now.
Right.
It's exactly like a toddler going, Mom, Mom.
Yeah.
Mom, 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 Mom.
He's gonna break you. Or he's gonna try.
Nope. We've had these guys for, well, Ikaika was the longest, obviously, but we've had them for decades, and they haven't broken us.
Okay.
We will.
Okay, well, we're looking at White Griffin. I'm learning a lot about fantasy. Okay, so like I love where this is going. Shall we go on to the next image? These conversations go bam so fast. But you want to say something else about White Griffin? Do you want to?
It's part of my Valdemar trilogy, and that's going to lead into the next trilogy. Part of my Valdemar series. That's going to lead into the next image.
Have you been called the Stephen King of fantasy?
Actually, Isaac Asimov wrote 200 books.
Ah.
Jane Yolen has written 400.
Wow. They call Stephen King the Mercedes R Lackey of horror.
Huh. Yeah, I'm very fast. If they don't burn out, there are some up-and-coming writers that are that fast now.
Amazing.
But the trick is whether they can sustain it.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.